We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Hopefully, your day is going well. It is Tuesday. We're into another week. All kinds of things ahead of us, a few things yesterday. So, we've got plenty to talk about. A couple of things I wanted to bring up before we get into it. First of all, some good news. Aaron Rodgers starts his first game for the New York Jets. Fourth play of the game, he gets injured. Looks like it might be his Achilles tendon. If it is, he's out for the season. So that's a good way to start the season. You're probably saying, why are you getting joy out of other people's misery? Well, because fucking Aaron Rodgers. Nobody likes Aaron Rodgers, especially if you're in Minnesota. All those years with Green Bay, they are our rivals, but he's such a douchebag. Now, how do you feel if you're in New York, a New York fan, or uh, the owner of the New York Jets? You pay all this money, you have all these hopes and dreams with him. The dumb fuck gets hurt on the fourth play of the game. Wow. Now, that said, the Minnesota Vikings looked like shit their first game and they lost. So now all of a sudden, I've got 3 hours every Sunday open to do whatever I want, presuming that the Vikings don't pick things up a little bit. Now, it doesn't look good for the Vikings because they play again on Thursday after taking the beating, and they're playing Philadelphia. So I don't have a lot of hopes for Thursday. So maybe I'll start the podcast early because I'll have those extra 3 hours that I don't have to watch the Vikings. You know, it's funny. I used to be just a fanatic about sports, specifically football. I like boxing. I like hockey. I like baseball. Not so much basketball, but I've become more of a fan because my wife's a fan. But I can't sit and watch any sporting event straight through. I just don't have the stomach for it. I love sports. I will watch my kids and grandkids play sports. I'll be there from start to finish. I just can't do it with college sports and pro sports. I don't know what it is. Anyway, in spite of what I said about Aaron Rodgers, hopefully he heals at some point after the season, and then he can start next year at like 40 or 41, and we'll see how much money he gets then. I also wanted to talk about something. You ever get in one of those moods where you're a little feisty and you just want to fuck with somebody? Not just for the sake of doing it. They have to fuck with me first, but I had one of those days today. And it always ends up being on Facebook. Now, I did a TikTok earlier yesterday, and I told this story. And the story goes like this. I ran into a guy that I used to work with that I hadn't seen in 25 years, probably. Never liked the guy. He's kind of a douchebag, narcissistic, money grubbing piece of shit. He's always bragging about himself and such. And I just didn't like the guy. Well, I'm trying to avoid him, but of course he picks me out. He runs directly over to me and he's very excited. He says, "Hey, how you doing, man?" I said, "Hey, I'm cool. How you doing?" He says, "I'm absolutely fucking killing it. I won life." I go, "Wow, what happened?" He said, "Well, I've done this deal and that deal. I've had this job. I've had that job. I got a new car. I got a house. I got a cabin. I got a boat. Everything is fucking beautiful." Now, this guy is trying to annoy me. I'm not envious of him because I'm perfectly content where I'm at. And I said, "Well, how's your wife?" He goes, "Got divorced." I go, "Yeah, that shit happens." I said, "Do you have somebody else? You get married again?" He goes, "Yeah, I got married again and I got divorced about 5 years from that one." Okay, that's too bad. I'm sorry to hear that. Your kids, I remember your kids, they were great. How are they doing? Well, they don't talk to me anymore because my wife kind of poisoned their minds against me, as they do. Anyway, I said, well, that's unfortunate. Any grandkids? He says, "Well, I've never seen them because I don't interact with my kids." Makes sense. Okay. So I'm looking at this guy and he's really jazzed up about how well he's done financially. And as you know from listening to me, I tend to be an asshole, but I try to be covert about it. I'm not going to say something right to his face. I'm going to try to make him feel bad. Okay. But I'm going to try to teach him a lesson too. I said, so you think you won life here, huh? And he says, absolutely. I got all this money. I got all this. I said, well, I think I won life too. And I think I even did it better than you. He goes, how can that be? You said you had the potential to make a lot of money. You were really good at what you did, but I made way more money than you. I said, I understand that. And that's true. And that's fine. But winning life's not all about how much money you make. I mean, you explained to me how your personal life is going, and I'll tell you this. Next month, I will have my 40th anniversary with my wife, my first and only wife. I have two sons that are fully grown, that never got into trouble, never got into drugs, are perfectly happy and healthy right now and leading successful lives. I have two grandkids that are absolutely the most adorable kids I've ever seen. I love them and they love me. So I feel like I won too. He says, yeah, man, but you could have made a lot more money. I go, I don't need money. My wife and I are retired. We have more than enough money to do whatever we want. We're not rich. We don't have a million toys, but we just have enough, and we have enough to do whatever we like. I have no stress. I don't worry about anything. I do what I want to do. So I think I won. He says, yeah, but you got to make that money. I said, let me tell you a story. My father was a lot like you. He was very intense about his business, very proud of the money he made and all the toys he had. Just like you. I said, unfortunately, my father had a bad personality. He was narcissistic, pathological liar. He was an asshole. And for the last 20 years of his life, he never spoke to his children, never knew his grandchildren. And when it came down to it, and he was too old to work anymore, the money he had went by the wayside and he was living off Social Security. And this once powerful, successful man that had it all ended up dying in a sparsely furnished one-room apartment. He was sitting in his only reclining chair in his underwear, and he passed away with nobody around. I said, you can have all the money, you can have all the toys, but when it comes to those last moments in your life, all you really have is your friends, your family, your memories, and whatever legacy you leave. That's all you got. Now, this guy didn't say much after that, and eventually he said, well, I got to go. Nice talking to you. He either thought I was an asshole or it maybe hit home and he's thinking about it. But I had to make that point. And some people think I'm being a jerk to this guy. I'm hopefully doing him a favor. By telling him what happened to my father and other people like him, hopefully this will send off a light bulb in his head, and then maybe he can figure this out, make amends with his family, worry less about money, and try to build a life and be comfortable and stress-free. So I told that story, and it's a fun story. It's a true story, and no big deal. I put it on TikTok. A lot of people resonated with it. But on Facebook, this woman who actually lives in Minnesota, and I looked at her page, and she was allegedly a journalist. She'd worked at some small suburban papers, basically shoppers and stuff. So she wasn't really a journalist. And she just posted something simple like, yeah, that story's not true. Really? Not true. Based on what? And then we got a little deeper into the conversation. I wouldn't even normally talk to this woman, but just something hit me. I said, you're supposed to be a journalist. Journalists base the things they report on facts. What facts do you have that this isn't true? And she said, well, I've interviewed 15,000 people and I just know how people talk. I said, ma'am, you have to understand, I've literally interviewed thousands of people and I do know how people talk. And the point is you have no basis in fact to suggest this. What's your point? And then it came out that she was kind of a Trump-a-fuck. I said, well, this is interesting now. Now you're worth talking to. You're a Trump fan. And she never said it overtly, but the things she said resonate with what Trump-a-fucks say. And I said, listen, you seem to think you're a pretty sharp lady. You have a journalism degree. I don't. How about this? You come on the Rational Boomer podcast and you explain to me your point of view based on facts, if you have them. Well, of course, she didn't even respond to that part of it. She says, well, seems like you're getting kind of triggered. I said, no, ma'am, I'm not getting triggered. I'm just having fun here. It's rare enough I get a dumbass Trumplafuck that has the courage to actually respond to me. So now that you have, it's kind of entertaining. And she kept talking in circles and such, never responded to the invitation. And finally I said, now you're fucking boring me. You're a bore. You come here spewing things that are opinions. And if you're truly a journalist, you know your opinion is irrelevant. It's about facts. And you would think if you have these strong opinions, you might have some facts to back them up. But somehow, some way, you can't even give me a single fact. So then I was going to just block her. But I thought, this could be fun. And it kind of went on for a little bit. Some of the people on Facebook were trying to protect me, and I appreciate that, but you don't need to do that. I rather enjoy when people attack me. It's kind of fun. But of course, they never come through. It's real easy to say some shit and then just move on. So those people I typically block. I have not blocked her as yet, but I think I probably will. One guy called me, hey, dumb fuck, you really believe 1 million people died during COVID? Yeah, motherfucker, I do believe that. I know at least 10 people that died of COVID, so shut your fucking mouth. That guy I blocked, he's just an idiot, and he's toxic, and there's no need for him on any of my pages, let alone Facebook. So anyway, those are a couple of things that were going on prior to me doing the podcast. Now, of course, I have a bunch of emails, and I'm liking this because I'm getting a lot more emails than I normally did. And I think the emails are an important part of the Rational Boomer podcast. Like I've always said, I love the interaction from the audience, and I get very anxious when I get emails like this. Now, I've got 2 emails from a woman by the name of Peggy. I think we've heard from her before. I'm sure we have, but we'll go with it. She says, do you remember when Mary Trump revealed that in his younger days, someone poured a bowl of mashed potatoes on Donald Trump's head? He was livid. In that light, I have decided that calling him Mr. Potato Head would be appropriate. I also think people should show up to his rallies with bowls of mashed potatoes. Yeah, I mean, if he's cognizant enough to remember that incident, that would be interesting. I think anything you can do to make fun of Donald Trump is a plus, because as a narcissist, that's the one thing they hate the most, making them look foolish, and then they lose their shit. She goes on to say, also in thinking about a possible prison sentence for him, for his safety, he should be put directly into solitary. His security could be in the hands of only 3 to 4 Secret Service rather than however many he has now. They could go sit in a chair outside his cell for 8 hours shifts, and there you go. Problem solved. I like it. Seems like a logical resolution. She also says, I love your podcast. Listen to them daily. Keep up the good work, Peggy. P.S. Love Old Soul too. Yeah, it seems like a lot of people have a penchant for Old Soul. Now, the second one, she gets into Old Soul again. She said, I enjoy Old Soul's emails. She was right saying that the young people feel differently about our flag. I can see exactly what she's talking about. Short story here. Someone threw out an American flag. It was on the ground in the rain. It broke my heart to see Old Glory that way. As a child in grade school, we said the Pledge of Allegiance daily and had so much respect and pride in thinking of what she stood for. We truly loved our flag. It was a prideful moment when the Olympics started and each country walked around the track displaying the flag of their country with pride and honor. And there in the grass, soaking wet, was my beloved flag. I picked her up, brought her home, and displayed her with pride on my front porch. Mr. Potato Head ruined all that. The saddest thing is when you see flags flying, the first thought is, I wonder if they're Trumplicans. I love my flag. I brought her inside. I can't bear the thought that anyone would associate me with those associated with the orange potato head. Old Soul was right. How in the world will we restore our flag's broad stripes and bright stars to her original glory and honor? It must happen. Peggy. Well, you're absolutely right. And this is something my wife has brought up to me many times. She's equally frustrated about the fact that somehow they've co-opted this American flag and made it a symbol of something that is so horrible and violent. My wife is a former teacher. I don't know that they do the Pledge of Allegiance in school anymore, but I certainly did it when I was young. And it is a symbol of our country, and there should be some pride with it. But Trumplifucks stole that. Well, I'll tell you what, that flag is going to be there long after the Trumplifucks fade away and crawl back under their rocks. So there will be a time when the flag is back to where it should be in terms of the hearts of the people of this country. But we should fight for that. We should push for that. It's a sad day when we can look at our flag, whether it be on a car or on a house, and say, yeah, probably Trumplifucks. That is sad when you think about it. And we do have to change that. All right. The next email comes to us from Gina. She's the one that sends out the kindness packages. She says, hi, Mike. I just listened to Michael Moore's Rumble podcast, episode 301, Self-Help for Frightened Liberals. It is short but helpful as he calmly explains the polls of last week. For any of your listeners like me who are not as confident as you and Mr. Moore that the orange stain is done for and will never sit in the West Wing again, I suggest they listen to this episode. It is done so sweetly and clearly. Like you, he helps me stay more rational. Love my mics. Keep talking, Gina. Yeah, I like Michael Moore too. He does some weird shit now and again, but I haven't heard that podcast, and I will check it out, Gina. It sounds interesting. I should mention something else too. I read an email yesterday from a gentleman. His name is Dennis. He has a handle on TikTok as 21 grams. He's the guy, the younger guy that's the leather crafter, and he's amazingly talented. And he has a great following on TikTok. And of course, he has a podcast. Now, he's been on my podcast a number of times, and he's always a great guest. When he started his podcast back up, he asked me if I would be a guest. And of course, I'll be a guest. Absolutely. And that podcast, conducted by Dennis, or 21 grams, is out now. He sent me the link to it, and I listened to it. And yeah, of course, I was brilliant, but it was really good. It was really good. No, I'm kidding. I wasn't brilliant. I was clever. I'm just joking here. Fucking lighten up. But anyway, it's a good show. And it was nice because we talked about things about me personally, or my thoughts and things, and it might give you a clearer picture of who I am. It may not give you a better picture than what you know, but at least it's some things you didn't know. So you may want to check it out. Now, on this podcast, I can't give you the link unless I put it in the notes or whatever. I'll just tell you this: go to Spotify, punch in, or whatever platform you use, but Spotify is the link he gave me, and just punch in 21 grams. You'll find the podcast. You'll find the one with he and I talking, and it's worth the listen. I mean, I was there. I did the fucking interview. And I listened to the whole thing, and I actually thought it was pretty good in spite of the fact that I was the guest. He does a great job, and you should check it out. All right. I got a note from a gentleman. He goes by Kinger412, Kinger on TikTok. He said, I want to see if you could use this gem today. And what he did basically is sent me an article about 9/11. Of course, yesterday was the anniversary of 9/11. And so he sent me an article where Donald Trump was interviewed on 9/11. And Donald Trump made some claims that just weren't true. And through all that was happening, all the suffering, all the tragedy and destruction that happened that day, the best answer Donald Trump could come up with, the best comment he could come up with, was just so insensitive and out of touch. 21 years after 9/11, we still hear Donald Trump's reaction. This was written a couple of years ago, or a year ago. That's because on September 11, 2001, the future U.S. president called into the TV station WWOR to talk about the day's tragic events. Then oddly, he turned his attention to the height of one of his properties, which he falsely claimed was now the tallest building in Lower Manhattan. Well, it was an amazing phone call. Mr. Trump told WWOR, 40 Wall Street actually was the second tallest building in downtown Manhattan, and it was actually before the World Trade Center was the tallest. And then when they built the World Trade Center, it became known as the second. Now it's the tallest. Now, as multiple fact checks later pointed out, this was not true. The Wall Street building had not been the tallest building in Lower Manhattan in the 1970s when the Twin Towers were constructed, nor was it the tallest in the area after 2001. By the time of Mr. Trump's interview, both buildings of the World Trade Center had collapsed after planes hijacked by Al-Qaeda terrorists had smashed into them. Two other planes also crashed into the Pentagon, Washington, D.C., and a field near Shanksville. 3,000 people died. But that told you who Donald Trump really fucking is. One of the greatest tragedies in the history of this country. And he's got to make it about him. Fuck. I got to tell you, we should have learned a lesson when we heard comments like that from Donald Trump, or when he claimed he would grab women by the genitals, or he'd make fun of the handicapped people. Why, after all that, does he still get elected president? That is a sad commentary on America, my friends. People who will discard those images and those words out of the mouth of this child and still vote for him as president. And then he commits all these crimes and misdeeds, and they still support him. What does that say about the people who support Donald Trump? They're stupid, they're children, and they are a danger to this country. All right, this next one comes to us from Old Soul. She said, hey, Boomer, Elon Musk woke up on September 11th promoting misinformation. Musk and Republicans are running with a narrative that California is wasting tax money, making the San Francisco Bridge ugly. Musk said it's apocalyptic. They're leaving out the reason why. On average, every 1.5 to 2 weeks, a person will jump to their death from the San Francisco Bridge. California added technology to spot those on the bridge who are at risk. The nets that they built on the sides are to catch those who get past the technology and jump. The nets will set off alarm for first responders, and the jumper will be able to be taken to get help. Boomer, I don't have anything to add. I just feel sad that people think the price tag is too high when the funds are being spent on stopping people from taking their lives. It's upsetting. I never thought people could be this heartless. Yeah, we found out a lot in the last 6 years about heartlessness. She goes on to say, I knew they didn't care, but I'm not sure when they stopped pretending to care. If anyone is more concerned about how the bridge looks, you can't see the nets from the bridge. You can only see the nets from an aerial view. I've attached a screenshot. I hope anyone struggling will reach out to help. Hopefully we can get the word out to let people know why the nets have been added and why the price tag is high. The technology isn't cheap. Thanks, Boomer, old soul. You have to understand, old soul. These fucking idiots will latch on to anything that they think will own the libtards. This isn't surprising. They try anything and everything, and they always fail. They're despicable human beings. They don't care much about people. In fact, that story I told when I did it on TikTok about the guy that, big on his money, but not on his family. I said that's almost a microcosm of the difference between Republicans and Democrats. Republicans are all about money, property, and power. Democrats are more about the people and the country. Which team do you want to be on? I don't get it. I don't see how people don't recognize this in themselves. They should, but clearly they're not bright enough to comprehend that. All right, this next one comes from Jace out of Texas, and he's kind of keeping us up to date with what's going on with this Paxton trial, the AG from Texas, who's in the process of being impeached. He says, hey, Mike, been keeping an eye on the Paxton trial, and some pretty damaging stuff from witnesses who worked for Paxton came out, saying he was paranoid and didn't trust law enforcement. Isn't that what criminals do? They also testified that Paxton donor Nate Paul, who others warned Paxton was a criminal, acted like the real boss of the AG office. Dude sold Texas out for money, and clearly that sounds familiar. I'm sure Trump didn't have all those classified documents because he enjoyed reading. We know he doesn't. As I said, I'm cautiously optimistic he'll get impeached by the Senate, but a glimmer of hope appeared today, saying the feds are paying attention to the trial. So if Texas does not send that SOB packing, the feds may. Sending a screenshot of the story, which he did. He goes on to say, really enjoying your show, and thanks to Old Soul and others for their recent mention. I'm glad they appreciate my contribution as I do theirs. Rational Boomer is a can't miss for this Gen Xer. All for now. We'll keep an eye out on Paxton Circus and look forward to coming on again to talk about it. Absolutely. You're welcome anytime, Jace. It's always a pleasure to have you on the show. And it's interesting about this Paxton dude. 6 years ago when Donald Trump came into office, we kept hearing about how he was under indictment, but somehow he never went to trial. Clearly, there was some bullshit going on with the DOJ under Donald Trump, and they pretty much let Paxton run free. Well, now if the feds are interested in Mr. Paxton, he ain't going to get a pass this time. This guy is he's an incredible criminal. He's incredibly corrupt, and he's just gotten away with it for years and years and years. Well, whether he gets impeached or not, I think the DOJ will step in, and he won't get away this time. Accountability is coming for Mr. Paxton. All right. We've got another email. I'm just trying to go down and see who this is from. Oh, this is a long one. I like the long ones, though. Actually, I don't know who it's from. I did not write that. Well, we'll see. All right, the next one says, hey, Boomer, I just saw the Sarah Huckabee Sanders press conference, governor of Arkansas, where she announced she banned the COVID vaccine mandate for state employees. The problem is Arkansas doesn't have a vaccine mandate. Who's going to tell her? LOL. My daughter and her friends are calling Trump rallies therapy sessions. An accurate description in my book. I need a pick-me-up today. This made me laugh. Hopefully it'll make someone else laugh too. Thanks, Boomer, Old Soul. Okay, it's from Old Soul. Yeah. Sarah Huckabee is a fucking joke. There is absolutely no question about it. This woman did nothing but lie when she worked for Donald Trump. She continues to lie, and she's just playing the game. She's trying to appeal to the Trump-a-fucks, thinking that's going to give her a win. I wonder what's going to happen when this all comes down, the indictments, the trials, the convictions, Donald Trump being taken out of the equation, when it's not going to be popular anymore to follow Donald Trump. What are they going to do then? Well, they're going to try to back out as quickly as they can and change up their plan. But unfortunately, they stuck around too long, and that stink will never be able to be washed off of them. And Sarah Huckabee is the worst among them. It's absolutely fucking ridiculous. Now, Donald Trump is got some problems. And you can tell that he is absolutely desperate because he's ranting and raving on Truth Social and any place else that will listen to him. He sounds like a dumber Mussolini because whatever he says really has no context. It's not very cogent, and he's just pulling shit out of his ass at every turn. And he's trying some things that aren't going to work. And we'll be talking about that in the next section of the Rational Boomer podcast. So we'll take a quick break and we'll be right back. Well, as I said, Donald Trump is getting pretty nervous. The walls are truly closing in on him, and he doesn't really have too many ways out. There's one person that seems to make Donald Trump the most nervous, and that would be Judge Tanya Chutkan in Washington, D.C. She's overseeing the upcoming trial regarding January 6th and Jack Smith. He seems really nervous about it. He's trying to pull out every stop to either delay or get rid of Judge Chutkan. You remember he and his lawyers were trying to get the trial delayed up until, I don't know, the next fucking ice age. It's a long time. He wanted to avoid it as much as he could. And, frankly, that is what Donald Trump's strategy has always been: delay, delay, delay until people either get tired or don't have enough money to continue. Well, that's a good plan, Donnie, unless you're going up against the U.S. government and they don't run out of money and they don't get bored or afraid or anything. So all you're doing is delaying the inevitable. But Donald Trump had another little trick he pulled out of his ass, and I think it's kind of funny. Former President Donald Trump is asking Judge Tanya Chutkan to recuse herself from the 2020 election subversion case against him brought by special counsel Jack Smith. And why I think this is funny is because I don't think Donnie's heard that judges recusing themselves from cases. Well, that's not happening anymore. That's not a thing anymore. Judge Aileen Cannon didn't recuse herself. Clarence Thomas hasn't recused himself. Judge Alito never recuses himself. So it's not a thing, Donnie. You must have forgot. Now, Trump, in a new court filing Monday, pointed to the comments that Chutkan made in cases involving January 6 U.S. Capitol rioters. He argued that there was little doubt that reasonable members of the public might believe she has prejudged both the facts pertinent to the case and President Trump's alleged culpability. In a highly charged political season, naturally all Americans, and in fact the entire world, are observing these proceedings closely. Only if this trial is administered by a judge who appears entirely impartial could the public ever accept the outcome as justice. Well, nice try. Chutkan, in response, has asked for the Justice Department prosecutor's point of view in a filing due Thursday. Trump will then have an opportunity to reply to those arguments with a filing by Sunday. Chutkan a Barack Obama appointee who was randomly assigned to Trump's case, has long been outspoken about the riot at the Capitol, calling the violence an assault on American democracy, which is true, and warning of future danger from political violence. She has repeatedly exceeded what prosecutors have requested for convicted rioters. The judge has also presided over civil litigation involving January 6, 2021, including a forceful rejection of Trump's attempts to block the White House Select Committee that investigated January 6 from accessing more than 700 pages of records. She has definitely not been on Donald Trump's side. She's the one that said presidents are not kings, and the plaintiff is not president, Chutkan wrote in that ruling. Trump's request that she not oversee the criminal case against him is likely an uphill battle. Yeah, I'll just put it to you this way. It's not going anywhere. You know who makes the decision on whether she recuses herself? She does. And she knows what the fuck is up. The first example highlighted by the Trump team comes from October 2022 sentencing hearing, in which Chutkan said that the people who mobbed the Capitol were there in fealty, in loyalty to one man, not to the Constitution. It's a blind loyalty to one person who, by the way, remains free to this day. I didn't hear her say Donald Trump. And even if she did, she's perfectly within her rights to say what she did. In fact, she's encouraged to say these things. And in December 2021 sentencing hearing, Chutkan told another Capitol riot defendant that the people who exhorted you and encouraged you and rallied you to go and take action and to fight have not been charged. Well, that's interesting she would say that, and it's even more interesting that Donald Trump would take offense to that. It says the people who exhorted you and encouraged you and rallied you to go and take action and to the fight and have not been charged. I thought Donald Trump didn't do anything. If Donald Trump thinks that's about him, then that would suggest he's fucking confessing. She added the issue of who has or who has not been charged is not before me. I don't have any influence on that. I have my opinions, but they are not relevant. Trump has pleaded not guilty to all charges, of course, and it's not going to happen that she is going to recuse herself, even if they appeal it to the district court. They're not going to accept it. This is a weak attempt, and I'm telling you this. Not because I'm so smart, but because I was watching Neil Katyal, who I think is very smart and has a long track record of being successful in the law on a government level, on a federal level. And he says, this is pretty ridiculous. So I'm going to take him at his word over everybody else. This seems like a Hail Mary pass that's not going to work. I'm going to tell you another story that's kind of interesting, where Donald Trump's lawyers fucked him and themselves. We know that in about 3 weeks, Donald Trump has a court case in New York, October 2nd or 5th or something like that. At first it was the 2nd. Now I'm hearing the 5th. Either way, it's coming quickly. And this is the lawsuit that Letitia James issued to Donald Trump regarding his fraudulent behavior in his business. It's a big deal. It's about $250 million minimum. It also is about him and his family no longer being able to do business in the state of New York. Now, his lawyer, what's her name? Alina Baba? Fuck kind of name is that? Anyway, Alina Baba, she's the very attractive woman who comes out and speaks for Donald Trump, basically parroting anything Donald Trump would say, which makes her look stupid, but she's there nonetheless. Apparently, in this case, she was supposed to file some papers, which she didn't do. Apparently, she was busy. But by not filing those papers, that now makes this case or this trial a bench trial. So what's that mean? Now, typically, when you have a trial of any type, whether it be a civil case or a criminal case, you will have a jury. And having a jury is helpful because you've got a bunch of people that have different opinions and they have to decide your fate. But by not filing this paperwork, Alina Baba fucked up. And I have a feeling Donnie Trump is going to be angry because you know what a bench trial is? A bench trial is where there's no jury. The final decision is made by one judge, the judge. This judge is named Engeron, and Donald Trump hates that motherfucker because he is the one that has slapped Donald Trump with sanctions and slapped down all the motions he's done. This guy does not like Donald Trump. And even if he does like him, he's not taking any shit from him. So this was an immense fuck up by Donald Trump and his legal team. But remember, Donald Trump only hires the finest and the best. Not this time, though. Alina Baba fucked up, and she fucked up big. Because if Donald Trump loses that lawsuit, financially and business speaking, he's done. He won't get put in jail over it, but he's done. He's fucking broke. Now, in a sprawling and far-fetched civil lawsuit that Trump brought in Florida against ex-Justice Department officials Hillary Clinton and other Democratic figures for an alleged RICO conspiracy in 2016's election, Trump sought the recusal of the judge assigned in the case because that judge had been appointed by Bill Clinton. U.S. District Judge Donald Middlebrooks rejected that request last year, but Trump has since revived it. These recusals don't happen all that much. And of course, if you're a federal judge in Florida or a Supreme Court justice, it's not even a thing anymore. You don't recuse yourself for anything, no matter how bad it looks. And Tanya Chutkan is not going to recuse herself in this case. Trump also previously sought the removal of the judge overseeing the New York criminal case against him related to hush money payments. Judge Juan Marchand, Trump argued, should recuse himself due to his daughter's political consulting work, which included in 2020 the Biden campaign and now Vice President Kamala Harris's campaign. And Marchand denied that request last month. So Donald Trump has a long history of asking people to recuse themselves. But like everything else, he fucking loses. He loses every time. You know, with all these appeals and all these attempts to delay things, after you lose every time, you would think, you know, maybe we should try a different strategy. But that doesn't seem to come to mind to Donald Trump. He keeps doing what he keeps failing in. These attempts to delay or distract, to get people to recuse themselves, to get people to dismiss cases. I think he even filed something recently for this lawsuit in New York to be dismissed. God damn it. It's gutsy. I got to tell you, he's got a set of balls. And he has no shame because he gets beat every fucking time. Now, talk about getting beat. Former Trump White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows on Monday raised concerns he could be convicted in the Georgia election interference case before a decision is made on whether he should be tried in federal court. Well, they've already decided that. Yeah, but of course he appealed it. So he's waiting for the appeal. I don't think he's going to have to wait very long, but, you know, he's going to whine and cry about it so he can find some delay. I got to tell you, Mark Meadows is fucking scrambling. He knows he's done for. He knows he's in fucking deep trouble. This motherfucker is going to end up going to jail in Georgia at the very least. A judge on Friday denied Meadows' attempt to move his charges out of state court, and he quickly filed an appeal. Of course he did. Now, even as Meadows continues his fight, the ruling enables the state court to meanwhile enter a conviction for him. So Meadows is now urging a federal judge to pause the effect of Friday's denial. At a minimum, the court should stay the remand order to protect Meadows from a conviction pending appeal. His attorney wrote that in the court filings. Now, absent a stay, the state will continue seeking to try Meadows 42 days from now on October 23rd, 2023. 41 days now. Now, if the state gets its way, Meadows could be forced to go on trial and could be convicted and incarcerated before the standard timeline for federal appeal would play out. U.S. District Judge Steve Jones, who will rule on the motion, ordered Fulton County, Georgia District Attorney Fani Willis to respond in writing by noon Tuesday. So today, Fani Willis is going to have to put up her argument for not staying this issue. I mean, he's waiting for an appeal, but that's not our problem. That sounds like a you problem, Mark Meadows. Now, if successful, Meadows' motion would still allow the state court to move toward a trial as long as it doesn't enter a conviction for him. A stay of remand order will not prejudice the state nor other defendants in the state court because it would not prevent other ongoing proceedings. It would only prevent the court from entering a verdict against Meadows, his attorney wrote in Monday's motion. And it will not prevent proceeding in state court if the state prevails on appeal. He continued, whatever minimal burden the state faces from a stay pales in comparison to the burden on Meadows. Yeah, of course, you're the victim. Meadows previously asked the, hold on a second. Hold on a second here. I'm trying to keep track of these stories and my shit keeps moving up and down, so I don't know what I'm looking. Meadows previously asked the state court to pause all of his proceedings entirely until the issue is resolved. A ruling on that motion has not been issued as yet, but I suspect that's coming pretty soon. Now, of course, Meadows is accused of entering a months-long conspiracy to keep former President Trump in power, which he did do. He faces charges of racketeering and soliciting a public officer to violate their oath. Meadows pleaded not guilty. He wants to move the case to federal court, which one judge already said, fuck yourself, you're not doing it. And it was unlikely that that was going to go anyway. Now, if you watch the media, they said, oh my God, what's going to happen if they move it to federal court? They spent hours talking about this in the media. I told you a long time ago that it wasn't going to happen. Anybody with any legal minds said that too. And that's where I got the information from. People who know better. People are truly professionals and not just talking heads in the media. Now, on Friday, the judge rejected Meadows' request, ruling most of the allegations against him in the indictment were political activities outside the scope of his job. And we know that to be a fact. He's trying to say he's a federal employee and that what he was doing was just his job, so he should have this dismissed. Unfortunately, if you look at the job description of a chief of staff, overturning an election isn't on that job description. So I'm sorry, Mark, you fucked up. This one's interesting. I've been hearing a lot of rumblings about this. This is in the House of Representatives, and it is, of course, Matt Gaetz. Matt Gaetz is such a fucking joke. I mean, he's like a cartoon character. Some people have compared him and Jim Jordan to Beavis and Butthead. And frankly, I think that's an insult to Beavis and Butthead. Matt Gaetz has got a forehead bigger than the wall that Donald Trump built on the Mexican border. It's cartoonish. Anyway, Representative Matt Gaetz will make his move against Kevin McCarthy on Tuesday, today, according to congressional reporter Annie Carney. I'd be surprised if he did. But what's he got left to do? He keeps making these accusations and these threats about taking Kevin McCarthy out of his position as Speaker of the House. That's the one strength that the MAGA fucks think they have. I still find it funny that the Republicans allow them to do this. You've got 218 Republican members of the House of Representatives, and MAGA makes up about 30 to 35 people. Why is this small group of people dictating what the Republicans think and do? That's pretty weak as far as I'm concerned. Now, Gaetz has been at odds with McCarthy since the January battle for the Speaker's chair. His group of lawmakers fought against McCarthy in the post, only agreeing to withdraw their opposition after a shitload of concessions. Kevin McCarthy sold his soul, and that is why he's weak as fuck right now. Apparently, Gaetz plans to deliver a floor speech, laying out a detailed case against McCarthy. He isn't expected to call for a motion to vacate, but he is laying the groundwork for a potential move to oust him if things reach that point. He's playing bully. He's trying to scare Kevin McCarthy. Last week, Gaetz on Tuesday dialed up pressure on House Speaker Kevin McCarthy, demanding he move forward with impeachment, whether other lawmakers are ready or not. Now, when Gaetz made a deal with McCarthy, he bragged that it was a political straitjacket. I have all the power. Kevin McCarthy's just a puppet that I'm pulling the strings on. On Tuesday, he suggested it was time to cash in. Well, you knew this time was coming. I worked very hard in January to develop a toolkit for the House Republicans to use in a productive and positive way. I don't believe we've used those tools as effectively as we should have. Oh, you think? We've got to seize the initiative. That means forcing votes on impeachment, Gaetz said last week. And if Speaker McCarthy stands in our way, he may not have a job long. Let's hope he works with us, not against us. Now, that's big talk from Matt Gaetz. But as I've told you before, they're going to be reluctant to try to vote on this impeachment thing because it won't pass. Remember, MAGA makes up about 35 out of 218 people. Now, a lot of the Republicans will go along with MAGA because they're weak-ass bitches. But there's a lot of them that understand that by doing this, this is probably going to work against them when it comes to the 2024 election. They think it's stupid, and they're right. It's not going to work. It's going to work against them. The problem is, if Matt Gaetz pushes hard enough to do what he wants to do, first of all, if they go for this impeachment thing, it won't pass. Then they look weak. Then if Matt Gaetz decides to get a call to vacate for Kevin McCarthy, that won't pass. And now MAGA looks weak. He's going for it all here. It'll be interesting to see if he actually tries to do it, because Matt Gaetz isn't completely stupid. He knows that he's going to blow his entire wad here, and if it doesn't work, he's done for. And so is his group of MAGA fucks. But, you know, if you want to try it, if you're ready to double and triple down and take a risk, by all means do it. I've said before, you want to impeach Joe Biden? Go ahead. Go ahead. Let's see what happens. Because I don't honestly believe it will pass the House. It will certainly not pass the Senate. So go ahead, embarrass yourself again. And then, Matt Gaetz, show us how tough you are. Have a motion of no confidence for Kevin McCarthy. Will it pass? Doubt it. It won't pass because it's ridiculous. But even if it does pass, then what? Then who in the Republican Party in the House of Representatives can garner 218 votes? You, Matt Gaetz, or Marjorie Taylor Greene, or any of these other motherfuckers? No, none of them can. You'll be voting forever to try to get somebody to be Speaker of the House. And when you don't do it, you'll have to beg Kevin McCarthy to come back, which of course he will. You fuckers love to act like tough guys, but you got nothing in the chamber. Fucking nothing. You're a joke. We're all laughing at you, and you don't even comprehend that. Now, there's a new guy in the House of Representatives that I like a lot. because he spends his days pretty much trolling the Republicans in the hearings and the like. His name is Representative Jared Moskowitz. He's a Democrat from Florida. He belittled Representative James Comer, the head of the Judiciary Committee, I believe, or head of the weaponization, whatever the fuck it is. They don't do anything, so it really doesn't matter. But he belittled Representative James Comer for flailing and failing to find anything that links President Joe Biden to an international crime syndicate. Speaking to Dr. Jason Johnson on MSNBC, Moskowitz joked he was starting to feel bad for Comer due to all his failures and humiliations. I get it, man. I kind of feel sorry for him too. You'd think he'd have enough sense to stop, but apparently not. He began talking about Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, who wants to break away from the United States and start her own country. Yeah, go ahead, do that. He said, I mean, look, Marjorie Taylor Greene came out just the other day and said she's recommending some states start seceding from the Union. So when she starts her new country, she can be in charge of impeachment in a new place, said Moskowitz. But it's fascinating, right? We're watching Freedom Caucus members fight amongst themselves over Joe Biden's impeachment. I didn't have that on my bingo card, that Joe Biden's impeachment would be dividing the Republican Party, but it's exactly where the status of the House Republicans is right now. They have no direction. They don't know whether they want to fund the government, whether they want to impeach the president. And that's exactly right. You talk about divisiveness between Democrats and Republicans. Well, that ain't shit compared to the Republican Party themselves. Like I said, they couldn't get anybody that could garner 218 votes to be named Speaker of the House again. So you want to get rid of Kevin McCarthy? Well, good luck getting somebody to take his place. Now, Moskowitz then turned to the Oversight Committee chairman and his ongoing 2023 failures. He said, and to be quite honest, I'm starting to feel bad for James Comer. He said, these low-T hearings are just not connecting with the American people because they're throwing darts at the board. Now you have Freedom Caucus members admitting no evidence on Joe Biden. That's the bumper sticker right here. That's interesting. And Jared Moskowitz hits it right on the head. And therein lies the problems for the Republicans. They have no credibility. They have little integrity. Nobody trusts them. And all they do is fail. So how is that going to end up? I don't think there will be a vote on impeachment. I don't think there'll be a vote to get no confidence on Kevin McCarthy, because the MAGA Republicans will lose resoundingly, and then they will lose power. And then maybe at that point, if they actually go ahead and try this, maybe at that point, the reasonably normal people of the Republican Party will step away from them. I still don't know why they're controlled by this small majority of fucking people in their caucus. You remember I talked about Mehdi Hasan and his interview with Vivek Ramaswamy. I've said this country, this media in this country, could stand to have about 10 Mehdi Hassans, because he's the only one that really knows how to interview people, put them in a corner and force them to answer the hard questions, as opposed to letting them run roughshod and say and do whatever they want, which is what all the other media talking heads do. But here's what I like about Mehdi Hasan. He's not prejudiced. He'll go after Democrats just as well as Republicans. Now, the Democrat he was talking to, I happen to like, but the questions he's asking are valid. And just because I like this guy doesn't mean he shouldn't be asked the hard questions. MSNBC host Mehdi Hasan interrogated House Oversight Committee ranking member Jamie Raskin Monday on why the Democrats didn't launch an investigation into former President Donald Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, when they had a chance. Now, Hassan was filling in for Chris Hayes on his show, and he asked that to Raskin. Now, I like Jamie Raskin, but that's a valid question. Why indeed did you not look into Jared Kushner? Clearly, what happened there was a little sketchy. Now, Mehdi Hassan says, Congressman, it's clear the president's son, Hunter, will be involved in any potential impeachment inquiry in some shape or form. Recently, you urged Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer, the Republican, to investigate Donald Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, for his foreign business dealings, especially with the Saudis. Why didn't Democrats do more to investigate Kushner when you were in the majority? The Republicans have succeeded in turning Hunter into a boogeyman, even though Hunter never worked a day in the White House. Yet Jared, who did, is doing just fine. This is what Raskin said. Well, remember, Jared's essential crime against the constitutional republic came right after the Trump's administration ended. It was, I think, the day after it ended that he created the corporation, which he proceeded to endow with $2 billion from the homicidal crown prince of Saudi Arabia and then other sovereign wealth funds from Gulf monarchs. He continued. So all of this is an ongoing story right now in the Biden administration. And of course, the Republicans are in control of the House just narrowly by 4 votes. But even Chairman Comer has conceded that Jared Kushner crossed an ethical line. And so all we're saying is, look, Jared Kushner was actually working in the White House. He was in the administration. Hunter Biden was never in the Biden administration. Hassan interrupted. I get that. I'm just wondering why you didn't do this earlier. I'm just wondering when you were in charge in 2021 and 2022, why you didn't do more on this front. Raskin argued, well, I think we've been doing everything we can to try to catch up with what we know. And what we're trying to find out is exactly what did Saudi Arabia get out of the arrangement and what is the nature of all the money that's been pouring in. Now, Raskin continued, now we know they covered up the assassination of Jamal Khashoggi, the drawing and quartering by the paid assassins who were sent by, the Crown Prince. We know that they were aligned with Saudi Arabia in Yemen, and they went there first. That was the first foreign trip that Trump took. So they got a lot out of it. And we were talking about all of that at the time. But look, you're going to do a complete report on a foreign government emoluments that were pocketed by Donald Trump. And we're still trying to torture out the information, which we have never gotten. Now, in March, former Trump senior counselor Kellyanne Conway claimed Kushner had benefited in the billions from Trump's presidency after being pressed about Kushner's relationship with Saudi Arabia. Now, over and above that situation with Saudi Arabia, it's been famously reported that both Ivanka and Jared, while they were in the White House, earned as much as $650 million. From who? And for what? That should be investigated. I appreciate Mehdi Hassan. The question is valid. Why haven't you looked into him before now? That's a good question. Why did it take until Jack Smith came along that we looked into the January 6th investigation and the classified documents investigation? Clearly, there's some slow actions by the Democrats. And that needs to be looked at. Why would they do that? Why would they take so long? This is why I like Mehdi Hassan. He doesn't play any favorites. If you've done something fucked up, he's going to call you on it. Now, I'm not saying Jamie Raskin fucked up here, but our House of Representatives and our Senate did let a lot of shit go by the wayside when it came to Donald Trump and his family. And they want to try to, and the Republicans want to try to go after Hunter Biden, claiming he's connected to Joe Biden in some sketchy business deal, but there's no evidence of it. They're pounding on this and they have nothing to show for it. So why indeed didn't the Democrats do something with Jared Kushner? I can only hope that that's coming, and it may come in a superseding indictment from Jack Smith. It may come in another investigation, but I'll tell you this. After the 2024 election, if the Democrats get the majority in the House and in the Senate and have Joe Biden in office, in the Oval Office, there's going to be a lot of investigations and there's going to be a lot of indictments. So this hot indictment summer is just the beginning. We're going to have a cool fall indictment fall. And it's going to keep going. Between now and 2024 and after 2024, it's going to be continuous indictments and charges and trials, and it's going to be a mess for a long time. One thing I will say for Jamie Raskin, when it came to the January 6th committee, of which he was on, those folks had a lot on their plate. They had to make priorities, and the priority was Donald Trump for obvious reasons. So maybe they let Jared Kushner and Ivanka go a little bit. They can only do so much, and that January 6th committee was specifically about January 6th. So the fact that they didn't look into Jared and Ivanka isn't surprising. But the important thing is, hopefully that's not the end. If they committed crimes, if they did something untoward, they need to be looked at, investigated, and indicted if it comes down to that. And I think it will. I think it will once the Democrats have the power back and they can look into these things and set everything straight. I don't know that. I can hope for that. I can presume that. And that's the better way to look at it than, oh, our government's failed us and we're going down the tubes. That's a negative attitude. None of us need to have that. I mean, when we started all this with Donald Trump, I kept hearing that all the time. Oh, nothing's going to happen. Nothing's going to happen. Well, right now, a lot of shit is happening, and even more is going to happen in the coming months. So those folks that thought nothing was going to happen, you were fucking wrong. So step back and shut up, because just watch what happens. And the same can be said for Jared and Ivanka. You might be mad that nothing's happened as yet, but it ain't over. It ain't over. And something will happen to them. They will be held accountable if they committed crimes. All right. We are going to wrap up the Rational Boomer podcast. I want to thank you for taking the time out of your day to listen. I hope you have a great day, and we'll talk to you again tomorrow.